H.A.C.K. Chapter 101, Sister Noujie's Grudge. Lucky Wind Great Courtyard, the library. Li Yunmu had been at the library since dawn. He could clearly see that the number of people visiting the library had increased these past 2 days. The reason was that after 2 more days, the Steel Castle would be entering the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone. This was a major hotspot for monsters. According to the legends, 70 years ago, a steel castle had to face a sudden attack from the dimensional beasts at the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone. In that battle, the steel castle of one of the major cities of the Holy Continent was destroyed in this dimensional field. From then on, it came to be known as the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone. This area was much more extensive compared to the Lamo River zone and spanned over an area of 100,000 sq.km. Furthermore, it also contained all sorts of dimensional beasts, with the Devil Ox clan being the hegemon among them. Apart from this, many other dimensional beast clans occupied territories in all directions. The strength of the dimensional beasts and monsters was also distributed over all layers. From the first layer ordinary crystal dimensional beasts that were in large numbers to the 4th layer golden crystal dimensional beasts. All of them could be found here. Furthermore, if someone's luck was extremely bad, he might also accidentally enter the nest of a rainbow crystal monster. Thus, the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone was considered the second most dangerous area among the other dimensional zones. Similarly, it was also a place for fluxers to get rich fast or make great improvements in their cultivation in one night. There was only a thin line between danger and fortune in this place. Given that it was such an extensive dimensional zone, how could the fluxers of Lucky Wind Great Courtyard waste these 2 days without gaining a proper understanding of the place? Preparedness averts peril. Thus, for the past 2 days, the library has a large number of people. Regardless of whether they were newcomers that had arrived this year like Li Yunmu, those who had arrived 1 year earlier, or those who had arrived 2 earlier and so on, all the seniors and juniors were concentrated in the library. Li Yunmu swept a glance and even discovered 6 seniors with a cultivation at the golden crystal layer. They were also busy searching for information. Apparently, they trying to prepare for something. However, this time, the purpose of Li Yunmu's visit to the library wasn't regarding the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone. Precisely speaking, that wasn't his main priority. He actually wanted to search for information about a secret and obscure location from all the books in the library. On the contrary, the information about the Devil Ox Valley was his second preference. Actually, after the system had scanned and absorbed the true 5th dimensional languages translation manuscript, Li Yunmu had already solved the puzzle of those 6 destroyed runic pages. The 6 destroyed runic pages written in true 5th dimensional language didn't contain information about treasure weapons like he had originally thought. Rather, it was a badly damaged map of a secret location. Although the 6 pages didn't give the specific location of the entrance to the secret region, after numerous simulations and analysis, the system was able to find the approximate location of this secret region's entrance. Moro Mountain Tenebrous Hidden Domain. This was the name of the dimensional field where the entrance to the secret region was located. Li Yunmu guarded this information tightly to ensure that no other soul would learn about it. This time, he had decided to go exploring by himself. Not for any other reason, only so that he could learn the secret of these destroyed pages while continuing with his hack. Secret region's entrance? He already learned that not many hidden entrances to secret areas had been discovered in the entire 5th dimension. In the last 200 or so years, only 37 such entrances had been discovered. But every time, the entrances of these secret areas had been the cause of death for many people. Those who died weren't ordinary people, rather fluxers, and not ordinary fluxers, instead fluxers that had the cultivation of silver crystal layer at the minimum. Thus, regardless of whether these people died due to information leaks that gave rise to disputes between different powers of humanity or whether they died due to the dangers within the secret area, these secret areas were extremely frightening places. If he hadn't congealed a king-grade crystal armor or hadn't learned an extremely formidable defensive skill or didn't have the two shadows to accompany him, Li Yunmu simply wouldn't have dared to enter this kind of places. Frankly speaking, he wouldn't have decided to act until he had full confidence. However, after thoroughly absorbing all the rewards he had earned from killing the Dwarf Witch Clan's king, Li Yunmu now had the qualifications. He searched through every nook and cranny of the library and even inputted the information in the stellar COMM to confirm. Soon, he had found every information available about the Moro Mountain Tenebrous hidden domain. The information about this place wasn't that hard to find, so he had quickly found a bunch of information. Distance from Devil Ox Valley battlefield is 38,646 kilometers. Li Yunmu carefully analyzed and sorted through all the information he had obtained and conveniently had the system scan and store all the information like the geographical position of Moro Mountain Tenebrous hidden domain and the map coordinates or any other relevant fact. Moro Mountain Tenebrous hidden domain? This is an extremely dangerous dimensional zone. Moreover, it also is a hidden domain. Fellow student Li Yunmu, what are thinking by trying to find out the location of another terrifying dimensional zone instead of learning about the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone? Li Yunmu was completely focused on the information in front of him that at some point in time, Noujie had arrived by his side. Just curious. Are all the areas marked as hidden domain that dangerous? Li Yunmu said without being afraid that Noujie could associate it with some secret. Moro Mountain Tenebrous hidden domain, the surface area covered by the entire zone was more than half of the central continent. If the secret entrance hadn't been discovered until now and could be found just by searching the dimensional zone it was located in, then this secret area wasn't worth existing. If he hadn't personally exterminated the majority of the dwarf witch race by himself, then he might not necessarily have found the information and approximate location of this secret entrance. Are you still planning to fight against a king-grade dimensional beast for dark flux energy? Noujie clearly didn't believe his lies. What? Don't tell me that this Moro Mountain Tenebrous dark domain also has a king-grade dimensional beasts. Li Yunmu's eyes shone brightly. What are you talking about? How could all the areas marked as hidden domains by humans possibly not have king-grade dimensional beasts? I honestly advise you, regardless of whether you are a disciple of that mysterious sect or not, you really cannot go to these places. At least, people with our level of cultivation cannot even think about going there. Noujie earnestly said. Then what level of strength do I need to cultivate till so that I can enter these places? At least till the rainbow crystal layer and only if you are willing to go there alone. Wait a minute, you just said that I am a disciple of some mysterious sect. Li Yunmu was slightly slower in noticing the aberration in her words. Wrinkling his brows, he repeated her words in a questioning tone as if trying to ask what she meant. Suddenly, he remembered that while he was walking in the great courtyard today, many seniors in groups of 2s and 3s were pointing towards him and discussing something. Although he couldn't hear what they were saying because he was far away, the words mysterious and hidden sect seemed to be mentioned over and over again. Initially, he didn't understand and was too lazy to investigate what nonsense they were spouting. But now, even Sister Noujie was saying this. This left him perplexed and confused. Don't speak like you don't know. Presently, many people are discussing about you and all your fellow disciples of the Li sect on the online forum of the Cloud City War Zone. You don't need to pretend in front of me. Noujie said to him with a slight frown. Don't try to change the topic. You really cannot go to this region. This time, Noujie was extremely serious, unlike her usual delicate and easygoing behavior as she said to Li Yunmu one word at a time. Why do you care so much about me? At the moment, Li Yunmu was distracted by Noujie's seriousness. He didn't dare to lock eyes with her. Noujie's concern could be considered as being overly serious. During my childhood, I once followed my paternal aunt to Lucky Wind City to visit some relatives. There, I met a rude and unreasonable delinquent that snatched my lollipop. To stop me from chasing after him, this delinquent also pulled down my trousers. At that time, I was only 6 years old. Without even blinking her eyes, Noujie narrated a childhood story while feeling angry and annoyed. The surname of this delinquent wasn't Li, right? Cold sweat appeared on Li Yunmu's forehead. Honestly speaking, during his childhood, he was indeed unreasonable and rude. The number of girls that he had snatched lollipops was countless. Furthermore, pulling down their trousers to make sure that they didn't chase after him was a well-tested trick. However, this childhood story, why does a goddess like you, Noujie, still remember about it? Even I have forgotten it by now. Oh dear God, this is so f***ing bad. What do you think? Chapter 102, Using Tiger Skin to Draw the Banner. In this world, there was no love without cause or reason, neither was there any hatred without reason. Li Yunmu hadn't expected that this would be the special reason why Noujie had become acquainted with him at the start. During his childhood, Li Yunmu had done countless wicked deeds. Naturally, he wouldn't remember the 6-year-old Noujie. However, the other party remembered. Not only did she remember, this matter was also deeply etched into her heart. Based on the feelings she showed while narrating, it was clear to Li Yunmu that she was used to wearing embroidered dresses and eating luxurious food. She lived a life superior to ordinary people and had never faced such repulsive bully. When she was a child, she had vowed that she would teach a lesson to this repulsive bully by snatching his lollipop and take her revenge by pulling down his underpants and spanking his butt. This caused Noujie to go to Lucky Wind City to visit her relatives every year. Whenever she came, she would keep a watch for that hateful bully that continuously troubled others. This continued for 10 whole years. From the grudge she had when she was little, her feeling gradually transformed into the sort of complicated emotion she felt today. It was strange, right? Li Yunmu felt quite bizarre. Life really was full of surprises, together with lots of melodrama. He laughed heartily while pointing his finger towards Noujie, who was silently reminiscing about the memories of this matter and had sunk into a daze. This caused a mix of anger and shyness to appear on her face. At this moment, Li Yunmu felt that Noujie really was extremely adorable. He subconsciously grasped Noujie's small hands. However, all the fellow students and seniors in the library immediately became deathly quiet. Li Yunmu seemed to have sensed the sudden transformation of the atmosphere of the library. When he realized what he had done, he was completely stunned for a moment. He even started sweating, thinking that this would really create a huge misunderstanding. He had only felt that Noujie seemed extremely cute at that instant and had subconsciously grabbed her hand. Noujie also managed to come to her senses and looked all around, only to see countless pairs of eyes looking at her and Li Yunmu with startled expressions. The sensitive Noujie couldn't endure the startled looks of the people around them. Her face turned completely red as she immediately stamped her foot and ran away while covering her face. Holy S.H.A.D.W, this is a mistake. Li Yunmu suddenly discovered that much to his dismay, even if he killed himself, he wouldn't be able to clear the misunderstanding about this matter. God. Brother Yunmu, you are a god. I request you to accept this little brother's kowtow. Suddenly, Crooked Teeth Jiang appeared out of nowhere and said in a worshipping tone. Noujie, the gentle goddess of Lucky Wind Great Courtyard. Her background was astonishing and she was a fluxer that possessed light flux energy. It could be said that according to all the newcomer fluxers, she was the perfect choice for being their other half. Moreover, she was also the target of the majority of the seniors in Lucky Wind Great Courtyard. However, who could have thought that within these few days, she would belong to Li Yunmu? At this very moment, Crooked Teeth Jiang was prostrating himself in admiration in front of Li Yunmu like he was some sort of god. This is a mother-f***ing misunderstanding. Li Yunmu wanted to cry. He knew that this explanation, which he himself felt was powerless, probably wouldn't convince anyone else. In fact, Li Yunmu was extremely fond of Noujie in his heart. This type of girl, who wouldn't want to take her home and become her husband? It could be said that she was absolutely the best type of wife. But he was only fond of her, he only wanted to treat her like a sister. He only felt that it was comparatively easy to talk to her, but didn't have any other deep-seated desires towards her. As for the present situation, Lee Yunmu had never expected this to happen. Finally, he decided to forget about it. After all, no one would believe his explanation. Thereupon, he found the relevant information about the Devil Ox Valley battlefield dimensional zone before making the system scan and store it. Afterwards, he returned back to his residence. By the time he returned back to his independent cabin, Li Yun and Li Feng, who were hacking at the dimensional battlefield, had already completed 10 battles. Both shadows had earned a total of 760 space elements. To avoid attracting the attention of other people and preventing them from finding out that Li Yun and Li Feng don't need to rest, Li Yunmu had already set up a schedule for them. 10 battles in morning, resting in the afternoon before another 10 battles. Following this schedule, if the hacking profits of the 10 battles in the second half of the day were added, then they would have earned approximately 1,500 space elements. He was completely satisfied with this speed. Apart from earning space elements, the both of them had also earned 78,000 dimensional coins through spectator fees for the 10 battles of the morning. The earnings from the spectators today far surpassed that of yesterday. There were 2 reasons for this. The first was that the rumor about the mysterious Li sect had already spread far. The second reason was that since their battling frequency was higher, the followers naturally wouldn't watch every battle each day as no one was that idle. However, despite that, this sensation of being wealthier than the previous day, made Li Yunmu quite delighted. When he remembered the rumors regarding the mysterious Li sect, Li Yunmu immediately went to the online forum of Cloud City Warzone. As he opened to take a look, sure enough, as Noujie had told him, 4 of the top 10 most viewed blogs or videos were related to Li Yunmu and the other disciples of the sect. Everyone was either talking about the conditions required to become a disciple of the Li sect or speaking about its profound reserves. Furthermore, violent blade skill, insect step, the nameless defensive flux method, heavenly dog engulfs moon, 5th dimensional treasure weapons, and other such things were similarly being discussed by the people. It could be said that the current most talked about topic on the online forum of the Cloud City Warzone were the mysterious Li sect as well as Li Yunmu, Li Yun, and Li Feng, the 3 disciples of the Li sect. The formidable battle skills and flux methods used by them were similarly the points of interest followed by many people. All the above-mentioned rumors had also been established as a fact. Looking at all this, Li Yunmu felt as if his head would explode. Completely unexpected. He had never even thought in his dreams that this matter would develop in this direction and so rapidly. Do these people lack a brain or something? What kind of moronic fantasies have these people imagined to go so far from reality? When Li Yunmu saw everything, he couldn't feel anything except helplessness. Hadn't he sent Li Yun and Li Feng to the dimensional battlefield to earn him space elements? Furthermore, as these 2 shadow avatars, Li Yun and Li Feng, began to win battles consecutively, it caused many people to pay attention to him as well. Initially, he had something different in his mind. If only one person had used skills like Violent Blade or Insect Step, then it could have been considered as his secret. But what if 2 people used them? Or 3 people? Perhaps there were even more who used these skills. Then it won't be considered as his personal secret, which was Li Yunmu's original plan. Of course, this was supposed to be a good thing, but now wait a minute. Suddenly, Li Yunmu felt a shock pass through his whole body, as if he had achieved enlightenment. Wait a minute, the rumors regarding the Li sect isn't necessarily a bad thing. At least, since he, Li Yun, and Li Feng had appeared, then his own actual situation would indeed become increasingly more vague with time. Moreover, as the rumor about the mysterious sect's power spread, then it was highly possible that it would act as his own powerful backer. Although this backer wasn't real, and if someone fearless dared to face the power of the mysterious sect, then the rumors would immediately be shattered. But would someone dare? For the time being, the rumors wouldn't be extinguished as no one would dare to challenge the Li sect. Even the various powers still hadn't determined whether this mysterious Li sect truly existed or not. So, unless someone dares to verify the actual facts one day, he could continue to act like a sheep wearing wolf's skin. There was conclusive evidence regarding the existence of the mysterious Li sect. The existence of Li Yun, Li Feng as well as himself. 3 people coupled together with many formidable battle skills that weren't found anywhere had already established one fact, that was there was indeed someone powerful backing him. After all, if Li Yunmu and other 2 didn't have some sect backing them, then how could they produce unique and powerful battle skills one after other? Battle skills weren't falling from the sky, were they? After pondering over many conflicting arguments, a plan began to gradually form in Li Yunmu's head. Thinking up till here, Li Yunmu felt quite secure. Since the situation had already advanced to this stage, then he could adapt accordingly. Given the spread of news, it was no wonder that he had spent the last 2 days so peacefully. Li Yunmu had indeed felt a major transformation. Those who had been trying to learn about his secret had indeed disappeared these past 2 days. Chapter 103, Refining Blade to Insert Rune. Just when Li Yunmu had resolved his heart to make the best out of the present situation and use the name of the mysterious Li sect as a power backing him, he suddenly saw a newly uploaded video of a scoop on the online forum. The title was The video was extremely short, but it really did contain the video of what happened before the fight, between Tang Ruoken and Li Yunmu at the Lucky Wind Great Courtyard, but what the F.A.C.K was this title? Who had taught a lesson to whom? This was a clear distortion of facts. Moreover, the main culprit behind this was certainly one of his side from Lucky Wind Great Courtyard, as Tang Ruoken had come alone yesterday night. Furthermore, he also had his pride as a proud son of heaven, so why would he demean himself by trying to distort the facts after losing and trying to shame Li Yunmu? The following events were according to his expectations. Since the video was genuine and was made by a real person, soon, many people without any rhyme or reason began to follow this post that distorted facts and started to smear Li Yunmu's name. Haha, I had been expecting this for a long time. What 3 disciples of a mysterious sect? Although their combat strength shot through the roof in the dimensional battlefield, what about the real world? As long as any black crystal fluxer equips his crystal armor, he can easily beat the crap out of Li Yun and his fellow disciples. No kidding, I used to think that Li Yun, Li Feng, and Li Yunmu's combat strength was quite formidable, fancy that. I had never expected that they would turn out to be so weak in reality. Good, this CR*P had been going on for a long time. What first layer fluxer more powerful than a third layer fluxer? Any person with a normal IQ would never believe it. If it really wasn't over-exaggeration, then why on earth are we still practicing flux energy cultivation? The more he scrolled down, the more apprehensive he became. So much animosity, this video was certainly shot by some fluxer who was from Lucky Wind Great Courtyard. However, why was this person trying to backstab his fellow student of the same city? Anyway, Li Yunmu didn't really care how others viewed him. Those fluxers who had a certain amount of strength all knew the truth in their heart. Only those people who were neither powerful nor experienced the world could be instigated that easily. Continuing on, he kept scrolling when he discovered that Senior Tang An had surprisingly personally appeared to refute the rumor. Tang An had taken the initiative to explain that no one knew the outcome of the fight between the 2 as Tang Ruoken had used the Heavenly Darkness cover at that time. He assertively declared that this was the whole truth of the matter. However, not only did his explanation not have any effect, it even caused everyone to believe that Tang An was hiding the matter to protect Li Yunmu and Lucky Wind Great Courtyard's reputation. Hence, many didn't believe his words. Furthermore, it even had an adverse effect. Regarding this, Li Yunmu didn't felt any anger, he just smiled and moved on. How was his present strength any of their business? He also didn't want to present an explanation to outsiders. After thinking about this, Li Yunmu didn't pay any more attention to this post defaming him, Li Yun and Li Feng. Rather, he began to look through other popular rumors on the online forum that had attracted his interest. Suddenly, this one information attracted his attention. Tower of Glory. There is a Tower of Glory. Right, why didn't I think of this before? Li Yunmu fiercely clapped his hands and his whole body almost shot like a bullet. That's right, it was precisely because of this Tower of Glory. As early as he had entered the library for the first time, he had carefully researched about this Tower of Glory. According to the rumors, this ancient tower was built 150 years ago. The Fluxor Guild Association had used all sorts of rare and unique materials including an origin dimensional stone to build it. It had taken 9 years or 108 months for the construction to complete. Its only existential value was that it was the only place which provided all Fluxors of the entire world with the glory and acknowledgement of their achievements. The whole Tower of Glory had 108 levels altogether. Those who were powerful tried to charge to as a high level as they could in the Tower of Glory. It would be the proof of the glory they had earned in their life. But all of this wasn't important. The most important factor affecting his decision was the freezing rune. For the past 2 days, Li Yunmu had racked his brains to locate a place where a freezing rune could be found but hadn't been able to find anything. Now, he finally had hope. Yes, the reason for his hope was precisely this Tower of Glory. He had heard that among all the Fluxors present in the 5th dimension, those who were able to get past the first 10 level would receive an insignia of Tower of Glory as well as a corresponding reward item from Fluxor Guild Association. And among these rewards, there was the freezing type ancient dimensional rune which Li Yunmu's Snow Guzzle Cold Blade lacked. Similarly, it was also possible to obtain a rune for the thunder energy he possessed from these rewards for a respective class. Usually, most of the ordinary silver crystal layer Fluxors stopped at the 5th level, let alone speak of charging to the 10th layer in one breath. Those silver layer Fluxors who had reached the 10th level with their cultivation could be counted in 2 hands. However, Li Yunmu was different. He was not an ordinary Fluxor. So when he saw this post, instantly he became excited. This was it. The one sentence was enough to wake up a dreaming person. Freezing rune, thunder rune. Whether he could obtain them or not, all depends upon the Tower of Glory. Next instant, Li Yunmu decided to move. The time that it would take the Cloud Castle to reach the Devil Ox Valley was less than 2 days. Hence, he must take action immediately. Although Noujie had seriously advised him that he must not proceed towards the Moro Mountain Tenebrous Hidden Domain, since Li Yunmu had decided on it, how could he possibly follow the advice of that little delicate sister? Noujie only wanted him to not throw his life away. However, she still doesn't know his true ability to survive. Furthermore, Li Yunmu wasn't going alone. After all, he had Li Yun and Li Feng to accompany him. Moreover, after adding in the fact that he had also practiced the extremely formidable A-grade defense skill, tyrannical cross-shaped arms skill, he wasn't just going to throw his life away. Rather, he did have the qualifications to enter that hidden domain. Thus, after pondering over this for a long while, Li Yunmu decided to not hesitate anymore and just go to the Fluxor Guilds Association. The Fluxor Guilds Association wasn't in the real world, neither was it in the 5th dimension nor in the true 5th dimension. Rather, it was located within the heavenly world of the creator of the Fluxor Guild. Actually, his heavenly world approximately the same type as Li Yunmu's heavenly world. The only difference was that the former's heavenly world was extremely vast compared to Li Yunmu's. They simply weren't on the same level. If Li Yunmu wanted to go to the Fluxor Guilds Association, he must first return back to the heavenly cloud city on Earth and go to the Guild Association's secondary encampment. Only from there, he could access the dimensional passage to enter the association's heavenly world. Just as Li Yunmu got ready and was about to leave, Senior Tang'an and Li Daxiang together with his group dropped by to visit him. Yunmu, have you seen the post trying to defame you on our Cloud City's online forum? It really is too repulsive. The way they are talking about you is unbearable. I saw. Li Yunmu indifferently said. Then where are you going being so prepared? Are you going to find Tang Ruokan to battle again? To wipe out the shame? Not really. You must not go. Senior Tang'an already knows the truth. This time, the person throwing stones at you is certainly a mole in the Lucky Wind Great Courtyard. All the seniors have been commanded to investigate this issue thoroughly. Believe me, you only need to endure for a few days. You said you aren't going to look for trouble with Tang Ruokan to take your revenge right now. Suddenly, Li Daxiang finally managed to respond. I already told you I am not. You guys are really. Li Yunmu was slightly annoyed. Facing these idiots, he was always left speechless. Moreover, what did they mean that he was going to find Tang Ruokan to wipe out the shame? F.A.S.H.A.D.W their sister. He had defeated all tricks of that guy time and time again. Although he hadn't publicly announced the result of their martial contest, that was only to allow Tang Ruokan to save a little face. Now, even this idiot trio thinks that he had lost? Chapter 104, Returning to Earth. Stop. It was unbearable for Li Yunmu to see Li Daxiang and his group distort the facts even more, so he quickly told them to stop. Then spreading his hands, he asked. Big Xiang, can you lend me 1,000,000 dimensional coins? I will return it to you after a few days. Once Li Yunmu opened his mouth, Big Xiang and his idiot trio was so frightened that they started to shiver. The first thing he spoke was to ask for 1,000,000 dimensional coins. What kind of major business was he trying to open? Why do you need such a large amount of money? To refine my blade. Puff. Following his reply, all the people who had come to visit him coughed up blood. Even if Big Xiang was the son of the richest person in the city, he wouldn't be able to easily raise an amount like 1,000,000 dimensional coins. Even for the pinnacle grade silver base equipment, his father had to clench his teeth to produce the large sum to buy it. However, this Li Yunmu asked for 1,000,000 to refine his blade without any care. The idiot trio was left speechless on the spot when they heard Li Yunmu. But then, they immediately remembered the snow guzzle cold blade which Li Yunmu had won last time. With that blade's quality, what were 1,000,000 dimensional coins? This amount was far from sufficient. Even an ordinary crystal-grade ancient freezing rune had a cost of 1,000,000. Furthermore, if he doesn't infuse at least a silver crystal layer ancient freezing rune on a blade like the snow guzzle cold blade, then he really would be unworthy of obtaining a blade of pinnacle quality. Just this blade alone was enough to provide an impression of Heavenly Dragon Tang family's reserves. Cough cough. If you really want to refine your blade, then our Lucky Wind City can support you. This 1,000,000 dimensional coins, I as the representative of Lucky Wind City will provide you. But if you need any more, you have to obtain it yourself. Tang'an, who was having a big headache from the side, said while clenching his teeth tightly. Senior, you are only the representative of the Great Courtyard, do you have the authority to make a decision on this matter? This time, Li Yunmu asked suspiciously. He didn't want to create troubles for this senior who was showing kindness to him. You are somewhat uninformed about this. Our senior Tang'an isn't simply the representative of Lucky Wind Great Courtyard, he is also the son of the city lord. Crooked Teeth Jiang walked to Li Yunmu's side and said mysteriously while patting his shoulder. Son of the city lord? Which city? Li Yunmu was startled. Our Lucky Wind City, which else? Tang'an smiled bitterly after hearing Li Yunmu's question. Being a city's lord's son, how could he be considered as only a second-rate official? However, according to Tang'an, this wasn't anything to boast about. The main reason for that was Lucky Wind City being extremely poor. A powerful family like the Heavenly Dragon Tang family could easily suppress the authority of the city lord. As for boasting about being the city lord's son, That would depend upon the city. However, the amount of 1,000,000 dimensional coins requested by Li Yunmu was barely within Tang An's authority. Soon, the 1 million dimensional coins were transferred to Li Yunmu's account. Success. With this amount of money, Li Yunmu had finally obtained sufficient passenger fare. In the case that Senior Tang An hadn't supported him, he could only choose one of the treasures he had and sell it off. But presently, he was saved from the trouble. He hadn't informed anyone that he was going to the heavenly world of the Fluxers Association. Even when his friends like Noujie received the news and came, he didn't say a single word about it. Because this time, he had to return to the real world, the Earth. Presently, the Earth was an extremely dangerous place for Li Yunmu. As long as he came out of the fifth dimensional world and went to Earth where there were no restrictions on cultivation, if he had to face a flux master, then he would be crushed like an insect. In short, he shouldn't dare to think about returning to Earth unless he had sufficient means to defend himself. This time, he clearly had no choice. After half an hour, he returned to the war chariot trading company he had visited with the idiot trio. He didn't spend much time here and quickly purchased a one-man Delta Speed God war chariot for 350,000 dimensional coins. This war chariot's price was even higher compared to the 5-man Thunder God war chariot purchased by Big Xiong. While it only had one seat, the cockpit was of a higher grade war chariot from the Delta brand. After carefully observing it once, he observed that it completely resembled a large car engine with vehicle armor. However, the difference it had compared to car engines was that regardless of whether it was the wheels, the engine, the vehicle armor or weight capacity and so on, they were in two completely different worlds. This vehicle could be considered deserving of Li Yunmu's hard-earned capital. This war chariot had three special characteristics that caught his attention. First was speed. This war chariot was 2.5 times faster than Big Xiong's Thunder God war chariot. The peak average speed it could attain was considered to be the maximum speed of higher quality war chariots. Its average speed surpassed 700 km per hour. The second outstanding characteristic was its all-terrain pursuit. It had even higher control abilities in all types of terrains compared to the Thunder God war chariot. It could move over all sorts of obstacles even more steadily. Furthermore, in urgent situations, it could even enter nitro mode. By drawing support from the nitro, it could achieve low-altitude flying for a short amount of time. The third outstanding point was the crystal armor's performance. Even with the war chariot's small size, the vehicle armor density mounted on it was its best feature. It could barely resist a single attack of a golden crystal fluxer. After purchasing this Delta Speed God war chariot, Li Yunmu soon spent another 120,000 dimensional coins to purchase an exoskeleton jet bouncing armor walker M 16th generation. This walker exoskeleton armor was actually used only after the Speed God war chariot had been destroyed. It wasn't for the war chariot, but rather, his personal armor. After mounting his equipment on it, the fluxer could save a lot of energy while rushing through the wilderness. It would be anyone's first choice if they wanted the best speed, endurance, and reduced energy wastage. It could similarly allow for short-time low-altitude flight over a distance. As for how long the flight would last, it was entirely reliant on the flux crystal provided by the fluxer. It could be said that regardless of whether it was the Delta war chariot or the walker armor, during their flight, both of them were endless pits that couldn't be filled regardless of how much flux crystals he supplied. Even if he had the hack system, he wouldn't be able to save himself from going bankrupt of flux crystals if he used the nitro feature for a long time. After spending 470,000 dimensional coins, Li Yunmu had spent more than half of the original 700,000 something coins he had previously. Finally, he purchased a single-person Fort Type 3 battlefield tent, spending another 30,000 dimensional coins and completing all his preparations. Within less than an hour, he had spent 500,000 coins. This was the best example of money being used like water. However, all the above preparations were completely worth it. After all, this time's preparation was actually for the Moro Mountain Tenebrous Hidden Domain. After a long while, Li Yunmu appeared at the Cloud City Steel Castle's Transfer Plaza Center. I want to be transferred to Cloud City's Fluxer Guild on Earth. At this moment, Li Yunmu's crystal armor had appeared. From head to toe, everything was covered by his crystal armor, even including his face. Cloud City's Fluxer Guild on Earth, 1 million fourth dimensional coins or 10 contribution points or 1 stable golden energy flux crystal. The person responsible for the transfer array expressionlessly replied. Li Yunmu didn't hesitate much as he immediately paid the 1 million dimensional coins. Following which, he was allowed to enter the transfer channel formation circle, which had a diameter of less than 2 m. Clearly, this transfer channel was either for a single person or at most 3 people. It was completely different from the transfer channel used by Li Yunmu when he had come here from Earth. Otherwise, if Li Yunmu had to return to Earth using the transfer channel from last time, the cost certainly would have greatly surpassed his budget. This is the ticket for the return journey, keep it safe. The official didn't speak anymore, and with the same wooden expression as before, he launched the transfer channel. Li Yunmu's figure gradually began to grow dimmer and finally disappeared. Report to the Lord. An ordinary crystal fluxer suspected to be Li Yunmu had just used the transfer channel to go the Cloud City Fluxer Guild on Earth. The wooden-faced official suddenly lowered his head and muttered in his stellar COMM. Chapter 105, Two Equally Proud People Meet. Earth, Heavenly Cloud City's Fluxer Guild. At the Central Transfer Plaza, there were many fluxers wearing crystal armor entering and exiting at this moment. However, without exception, all of them had a silver crystal armor. Extremely few ordinary crystal or black crystal fluxers were found here. The reason was simple: the transfer channel was extremely expensive, causing fluxers with low cultivation to be unable to bear the cost. However, expenditure wasn't the only problem that stopped fluxers with low cultivation from using the transfer channel. The most difficult problem for them was that the transfer requirements for traveling through different planes were extremely harsh for fluxers with low cultivation. Basically, unless one had congealed silver crystal armor or had a strong fleshly body, he wouldn't be able to endure the enormous tearing force during the transfer process through the transfer formation. Therefore, very few fluxers with cultivation lower than silver crystal layer were found at the transfer center of every secondary city. At this moment, outside the plaza, there was a female silver crystal flux disciple who poised herself tall. She was walking inside with quick steps and followed by 2 female attendants. The female attendant moving by her right side blinked excitedly and said, "Master, there are many silver crystal fluxers here. They are all at the same crystal layer as you, Master." The female fluxer's body was covered in a tight-fitted and lightweight silver crystal armor that reflected her perfect figure. She hadn't closed the crystal armor mask, revealing her face, which looked beautiful regardless of her expressions. She was very young, seemingly only 16 years old. Although her face didn't reveal any expression, her body emitted an air of pride. Her properly stretched legs covered by tightly fitted crystal armor forced people to look at her repeatedly. However, no fluxer dared to show even a hint of disrespect. The reason was simple. A 16-year-old female who had already congealed her silver crystal armor, with an air of pride around here, definitely had either a powerful background or pinnacle-grade innate talent. No one was blind or stupid enough to provoke her. Facing such a character, even though it was a beautiful female, the other fluxers didn't have any sudden urge to strike up a conversation with her. Moreover, the 2 sword maidens following behind her also had a delicate and elegant complexion and similarly looked extremely pretty. That's natural. Presently, all the fluxers who have the ability to enter the transfer plaza, have a cultivation of at least the silver crystal layer. Generally speaking, these people could be considered as the future elites of our heavenly cloud city. The proud female didn't seem to put on any airs towards her 2 attendants and was talking freely with them. "Wow, Master! Look that way, there is a fluxer with golden crystal flux armor. The presence emitted by his body is extremely terrifying. I can feel the oppressive sensation even though we are so far from him. Among the two sword maidens walking by her left and right, the nature of the one on the left side was extremely cheerful. From the time she had started following her, she hadn't stopped whispering. The one on the right side could be said to be extremely mature, she had been following behind her without saying a word. However, her envious gaze shuttled between these legendary crystal armors on the body of Fluxers, revealing the resentment in her heart. Golden crystal Fluxers appearing here isn't something to make a fuss about. Little S.H.A.D.O.W, the ones you should pay attention are the ordinary crystal and black crystal Fluxers. The female Fluxer, who was more experienced, pointed out to her maid. Why? Regardless of whether it is the ordinary crystal or black crystal Fluxers, they aren't as powerful as the silver crystal or golden crystal Fluxers. S.H.A.D.O.W said, feeling puzzled. Idiot. The young lady didn't say any more. However, at this time, the other maid walking on the right side suddenly said. These Fluxers with low cultivation are rarely seen here. They aren't ordinary themselves. Yes, these low cultivation Fluxers who come out of the transfer channel aren't ordinary. You both should be careful. Even if you offend the silver crystal Fluxers here, it isn't a big problem. But you must never provoke these people with low cultivation. These people with low cultivation who can come here don't have good temperaments. If you offend them, you can only blame yourself for courting trouble. The young lady continued to instruct the two newly accepted maids. This sort of commanding of others was quite fun for her. Humph. At home, a group of elders usually follow her everywhere, telling her to behave properly. Now, she can show off her knowledge. Ah, so this is the case. Little S.H.A.D.O.W patted her soft chest and breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, her both eyes went wide. What they were just talking had happened. It hadn't been long since the three entered the transfer center plaza and had not even encountered a single black crystal Fluxer. But now, they just saw a Fluxer with ordinary crystal armor step out of the transfer formation. Master, look quickly. There is an ordinary crystal Fluxer coming out of the transfer formation. Little S.H.A.D.O.W whispered, immediately causing all three to turn their gazes. And sure enough, there really was an ordinary crystal Fluxer stepping out of it, without any higher cultivation Fluxers by his side. This ordinary crystal Fluxer swept a glance at his surroundings before walking towards another transfer channel in large strides. The silver crystal Fluxers in his way moved half a step away one by one. Facing this ordinary crystal Fluxer, they surprisingly yielded on their own? What kind of situation was this? Instantly, little S.H.A.D.O.W's view of the world was overturned after watching this. Shouldn't the person with a higher cultivation be treated most respectfully than the one who had higher status? But presently, she saw just the opposite of what she had thought happen. It is not strange. Since he had the qualifications to come here, even with an ordinary crystal layer cultivation, then he certainly has formidable combat strength. Even these silver crystal Fluxer may not be his opponents. The female Fluxer indifferently replied. Only, when she saw this person adorning ordinary crystal over his whole body, she felt some familiarity with him. This person seemed quite conceited and isn't even trying to conceal his arrogance. Moreover, the slight familiarity she felt, immediately made Chu Qingyu stop moving. After halting her steps, she curiously sized up this person hiding his face. Could it be someone whom she knew? Notification. There are at least 3 transfer channel supervisors secretly paying attention to the host. Apart from that, 70 degrees to the right, there is a young female Fluxer sizing up the host with a complicated gaze. Attention host, the system can say with 90% certainty that the members of the Fluxer Guild have already deduced your identity. After returning to Earth, Li Yunmu had come to the Heavenly Cloud City's Fluxer Guild's transfer center for the first time when he again received system's notification about his movements being monitored. Actually, he had already been prepared his heart for this warning notification long ago. Perhaps, he could hide his identity from others by using the crystal armor to cover himself. However, his efforts to conceal himself from the Fluxer Guild were clearly futile. But it doesn't matter. After returning to Earth this time, he didn't plan to leave the Fluxer Guild. His aim was the heavenly world of the Fluxer Guild Association. As long as he remained within the Fluxer Guild's territory, who the H.A.C.K would dare to deal with him here and challenge the authority of Fluxer Guild? Thereupon, he walked towards the transfer channel of the association's heavenly world without any hesitation. After passing by the three females, he was suddenly startled. The female Fluxer whom the system had just notified him about was certainly sizing him up. But Li Yunmu hadn't expected that when he looked at her, he would find two acquaintances. Yes, not one but two. The female Fluxer walking in the front was precisely the one he had encountered previously on the dimensional battlefield, Chu Qingyu. She was the female who had dark flux energy and was quite an arrogant and pompous person. However, the sword maiden following behind her back on the right side was actually Lin Li. Lin Li had failed the half-awakened Fluxer test previously. When did she become Chu Qingyu's attendant? This world was really small indeed. Li Yunmu was only slightly distracted. Then acting casually and pretending to not know them, he quickly walked towards the heavenly world's transfer channel. Chapter 106, World Power Rank. Regardless of whether it was Chu Qingyu or Lin Li, he wasn't familiar with one and the other was already in the past. Hence, he didn't want to acknowledge their presence. Feigning unfamiliarity, he moved towards the transfer channel for the heavenly world in large strides. Presently, he was completely covered by the crystal armor, including his face. Hence, he thought that he didn't need to worry about them recognizing him. However, he had still underestimated a woman's intuition or their delicate sixth sense. Wait a minute, that person walking in front, please stop for me. Suddenly, Chu Qingyu loudly called him from behind. The Fluxers in the surrounding couldn't help but be attracted by this girl's loud voice. Once they saw who it was, a bitter smile instantly appeared on their faces. Surprisingly, it was Hidden Rain City Chu family's eldest daughter. Everyone then looked at Li Yunmu whom Chu Qingyu called. When they saw he was an ordinary crystal Fluxer, they all had one thought: regardless of whoever he was, he didn't seem like a normal Fluxer. After all, Li Yunmu had surprisingly endured the transfer channel's spatial tiering by relying on an ordinary crystal flux armor. There wasn't anyone here who would think of him as ordinary. "This lady, you called me?" Li Yunmu helplessly halted his feet. He turned around and said, pretending to not recognize her. "Yes, I called you. I can sense that there is something familiar about you. Do we know each other?" Chu Qingyu arrived in front of Li Yunmu with her sword maidens and looked at him oddly. This girl had just instructed little Xia that they certainly mustn't provoke these Fluxers with low cultivation base, lest they court trouble for themselves. However, little Xia and Lin Li didn't find anything out of the ordinary. What kind of character was Chu Qingyu? She was the proud daughter of heaven belonging to the Chu family of Hidden Rain City, one of the 10 citadels under the control of Heavenly Cloud City. Furthermore, her mother's family was closely related to the Heavenly Cloud City's city lord. It could also be said that in all the cities governed by Heavenly Cloud City, she was one proud daughter of heaven that was even more influential and domineering than Tang Ruokan of the Heavenly Dragon Tang family. "No, who are you? Although you seem quite elegant, but hasn't your mother told you that you should not take the initiative to converse with a male unless you want people to misunderstand?" Li Yunmu didn't know what came over him when he saw the beautiful little face of Chu Qingyu. His old problem recurred again and the only thing on his mind was to provoke her. "You definitely know who I am." Chu Qingyu was startled at once. In her whole life, no one had dared to truly tease her. However, the most repulsive thing was that this person, apart from familiar conceited behavior, also had a vile mouth. He had surprisingly dared to treat her as a little girl who didn't know about the world. Instantly, Chu Qingyu was driven mad. She wanted to have a duel with this person who was hiding his face. Damn it! She wanted to teach a proper lesson to this youngster and make him understand what humility was. However, next instant, she discovered that this person who had arrogantly teased her directly entered the heavenly world's transfer channel without saying anything. He ran away surprisingly. He ran away without saying a word. Within a split second, the seemingly familiar action of this person made Chu Qingyu remember another cheap person. But according to logic, that cheap person should still be at Lucky Wind Great Courtyard. How could he suddenly appear in the guild's territory? What did he really want? As for Li Yunmu, he suddenly threw down a line and immediately escaped without saying anything. It wasn't because he had a change of heart. The main reason was that he discovered that Lin Li, who was beside Chu Qingyu, was looking at him suspiciously. As he didn't want to expose himself and didn't want Lin Li to recognize him, he silently walked towards the heavenly world. Once he entered the heavenly world, Li Yunmu's heart was filled with shock. The heavenly world of Fluxor Guild's creator. Now this was a true heavenly world. After passing through the heavenly world's transfer channel, a vast cosmos appeared in front of him. The sky was filled with many evenly distributed stars. The number of stars was almost countless. The 7 incomparably enormous stars were hanging overhead in the sky. The warm starlight from the different stars illuminated everything, causing the whole land to be filled with colors and light. Countless fluxors with all layers of cultivation base could be seen walking around in this heavenly world. There were ordinary crystal fluxors, black crystal fluxors, silver crystal fluxors, golden crystal fluxors, and even the peak cultivation allowed in the 5th dimension rainbow crystal fluxors. Li Yunmu knew that this didn't represent all the fluxors present here. After all, he was still within the region where fluxors were automatically transferred after coming out of the transfer channel. Probably, in other regions of this heavenly world, there might be even more powerful people. Even seeing the rare flux sage was also possible. Enormous heavenly world. The 7-star world's master. Surprisingly, the creator of the Fluxor Guild is the master of a 7-star world. Li Yunmu remained rooted to the ground and mumbled in a daze. Originally, the existence of a world master should just be the stuff of legends. But as his strength had increased, the things he had access to also increased. Li Yunmu had recently discovered that there really were such legendary characters standing above the earth. Imposing, lonely, independent, like deities who couldn't be disrespected. Li Yunmu had known that within a short 200 or so years, those that had cultivated to the terrifying level of Flux Sage stood at the pinnacle. But presently, the heavenly world of a genuine world master possessing his own 7-star cosmos was in front of him. Although he himself had a heavenly world, his heavenly world wasn't even worth mentioning when compared to the heavenly worlds of other Fluxors. My God, how many flux crystals have been used to make this heavenly world expand to such a state? Li Yunmu mumbled again in his daze. Unfathomable. Strictly speaking, the land in the heavenly world was completely different from the land which existed on earth. It was just a piece of land naturally floating in the starry sky. The starry sky above his head was infinitely large. There wasn't any atmosphere and the land directly faced the sky without any kind of screen, as there was no permanent heavenly bodies here or any sort of cosmic rays, since this was an extremely stable personal world. According to the Fluxor Guild, the flux energy cultivators were distributed into the following based on their strength: Flux Disciple, Flux Master, Flux Sage. Flux Disciples, as the name implied, all the Flux Disciple practicing flux energy were known as Fluxors. In other words, Li Yunmu was currently in this layer. This layer was divided into ordinary crystal layer, black crystal, silver crystal, golden crystal layer and rainbow crystal layer. These 5 layers formed the hierarchy of this level in ascending order. Flux Masters. The flux energy in these experts had advanced by 1 layer to enter the realm of transcended flux energy. The difference between flux energy and transcended flux energy was a transformation, a complete qualitative change. Only when the flux energy in Fluxor's body completely transforms into transcended flux energy could the Fluxor be truly considered as a flux master. Altogether, it has 3 stages. Namely, transcendent layer, temporal layer, and nirvana layer. Finally was the flux sage. It also had 3 stages, namely ordinary sage, domain sage, and battle sage. Ordinary sage was the first level of the flux sage realm. To become an ordinary sage, one must genuinely transcend worldliness. He could neither be subjected to the bindings of the mortal world nor be constrained by mortality or the cycle of life, death, and reincarnation. Once you become an ordinary sage, your life expectancy would increase to 500 years. Domain sages possess their own sage domains. Inside one's sage domain, others were just like ants and moles. Battle sages could merge their domains into their body, allowing their fleshly body's combat strength to even surpass deities. The sage domain was their body and their body was their sage domain. With each and every action, their combat strength shoots through the sky. No person would dare to stand equal to them. They were existences which don't have any holes or flaws, they were completely without any weakness. Why was Ling Shuang considered as a taboo by people? To the extent that no one was willing to talk about her? That's because her master is a battle sage, a supreme unrivaled existence. The personal disciple of a battle sage. That was already an identity which people would dare to criticize. However, Li Yunmu had never expected that above the battle sage, there would still be an existence like the world master. Strictly speaking, until the present day, humanity hadn't been able to determine the limits of a world master's powers as humanity was just fumbling through things right now. After all, the history of humanity's flux cultivation was barely 200-something years old. Long before, those people who were considered to be extremely knowledgeable had claimed that after cultivating up till battle sage, there was no further path of cultivation. If one wanted to become even more powerful, then there was only one way, and that was to become a world master. Once, when the human race had gathered together, the Almighty One had deduced that the world master layer had 12 star ranks. Every star congealed was classified as one rank. The simultaneous appearance of 12 stars would make them like gods, possessing their own worlds. Naturally, all of this was just rumors and predictions. However, Li Yunmu hadn't expected that today, he would really see someone actually accomplish it. The creator of the Fluxor Guild had surprisingly congealed 7 stars in his own heavenly world. How could he not be extremely surprised to see this? Perhaps every Fluxor that entered for the first time all feel this extreme shock, which wasn't much of a surprise. There were fixed transfer channels to the Fluxor Guild creator's heavenly world opened in all 7 major cities. After all, he wasn't worried about any person or any nature of power. But desiring to become a world master was extremely difficult. The first and most important requirement that one must possess an origin dimensional stone. Yes, Li Yunmu had already fulfilled the first prerequisite, but becoming a world master was still too far in the indefinite future. In fact, no one would even be confused between the two of them. The threshold requirement of possessing an origin dimensional only certified that Li Yunmu could be considered as a world power holder. That's right. Compared to a world master, a world power holder was too far away that he couldn't even be talked about in the same sentence. Even the world master level was extremely far away from him. Let alone speak of being powerful enough to congeal 7 enormous stars in his heavenly world. Finally, who was more powerful between battle sage and world master? Apparently, it was considered a controversial topic in all books. The former had merged with his own domain and he was the master of a domain, while the latter possessed his own heavenly world and was the master of a world. One had a domain while the other had a world. From the name, it would seem that a world master was more powerful compared to a battle sage, and the reality was also the same. But arguing on the basis of solely combat strength between the peak of Flux Sage layer, Battle Sage vs World Master, no one could definitely conclude whose combat strength was more formidable. However, everyone agreed to one irrefutable fact. That was that when a world master could complete the full circle of 12 stars in his heavenly world, then this world master with 12 stars in his heavenly world would be the only god in the present world. Although no human could rival a battle sage, a god could. Naturally, all of this was just a legend. Whether it was true or false, humankind hadn't been able to confirm it until now, since humanity still hadn't given birth to any gods. Chapter 107, Tower of Depravity. Hey, why are you standing there like an idiot? Are you so stunned by Flux Ancestor's heavenly world? After entering the Association's heavenly world, he continued to stare at the 7 enormous stars hanging in the sky. However, the melodious voice of a female that seemed to have a lot of knowledge woke him up from his daze as someone suddenly patted his shoulder. There was no need to ask who it was. This girl, Chu Qingyu, had followed him. Perhaps it would be better to say that her destination was same as his, the heavenly world of the Association. Flux Ancestor. However, Li Yunmu didn't pay any attention to whatever she was saying. Instead, he only paid attention to this term Flux Ancestor. Haha, Flux Ancestor is the creator of the Fluxer Guild. So troublesome. Haven't you been instructed about history by your high school? You don't even know the Flux Ancestor. Li Yunmu sighed deeply. His high school really hadn't taught any Fluxer-related knowledge. Lucky Wind City itself had fallen behind in progress. The 16th high school had even sunk down to the level of an ordinary school. How could he compare to a proud daughter of heaven who had been taught all sorts of things regarding Fluxers ever since her childhood? It could also be said that the difference between a character like Chu Qingyu and him was originally as large as the difference between heaven and earth. But presently, his fate had already changed. Even though he is the creator of the Fluxer Guilds, is Flux Ancestor another identity that he is more widely known by? Li Yunmu couldn't help asking. Flux Ancestor, what did this title represent? Probably almost all people knew his title of Almighty One, but obtaining this title wasn't so easy. This is what you don't know. The creator of the Fluxer Guild has another identity. He was the first person to awaken Flux energy during Dark Ages, which provided a hope of survival to mankind. Tell me, is suitable for this title or not? Senior from Dark Ages. From 200 years ago. This time, Li Yunmu genuinely understood. A person from that period surprisingly still exists. He felt a new door being opened in his worldview. However, if he really was the first person to awaken and also the supreme creator of the Fluxer Guild, then he did deserve the title of Flux Ancestor. Forget about it, there is no use talking to a blockhead like you. I am going to the Tower of Glory, but before that, do you have the guts to battle with me for a second time? Chu Qingyu suddenly asked. What second time? Lady, we have met for the first time. I have never met you before today. What sort of person was Li Yunmu? How could he let the other party coax him into revealing his identity? However, there was no doubt that this girl Chu Qingyu was more or less certain of his identity. Are you really not that stupid blockhead, Li Yunmu? Seeing that Li Yunmu wasn't duped, a hint of suspicion flashed through Chu Qingyu's eyes. No, I am not. Are you talking about the Li sect's third disciple? How could I compare to such a great character? Li Yunmu remained completely unfolded and said with a faint smile. However, you are going to the Tower of Glory at the perfect time. I also want to temper myself in the tower. I can just follow you. You lead the way. This time, Chu Qingyu had truly verified that this person standing in front of him was certainly not Li Yunmu. However, he was still a bast *RD like that Li Yunmu. Alright then, walk behind me and stay close, don't lose your way. After learning that the person in front of him wasn't Li Yunmu, Chu Qingyu instantly lost most of her interest. Since it was no use staying at the public venue, she started moving forward with her 2 sword maidens. However, Lin Li would occasionally steal a glance of Li Yunmu from time to time. Clearly, Lin Li was still suspicious of his identity. However, it doesn't matter. Since they have met then, he would just follow them without any worries about his identity being revealed. Having someone to guide you was always better than running around wildly. He had to accept that Flux ancestors' heavenly world was indeed incomparably extensive. Even though it was only a place for Fluxers, the area of this landmass surpassed Lucky Wind City by many times. His surroundings were filled with some ancient-style buildings. This was the permanent encampment of the Fluxer Guild. The entire ground was covered with limestone tiles, and walking on it gave people a feeling of time travel. Li Yunmu kept following Chu Qingye for the greater part of an hour when they finally arrived in front of an ancient tower emitting multicolored light. When he raised his head to look at it, he saw that the ancient tower was divided into 108 levels. As one moved to higher levels, the tower became increasingly slender. Apparently, this was the Tower of Glory, whose name was enough to send tremors through all 6 continents. According to rumors, this tower itself was constructed from origin-dimensional stone. Perhaps in the whole world, only the Flux ancestor could have the luxury to establish a tower which itself was a small heavenly world in his heavenly world. This Tower of Glory has 108 levels altogether. Since you dare to challenge it, then you should have known this before. However, I am certain that you don't know that it actually has an additional 108 hidden levels. Chu Qingye puffed up her chest and said proudly, showing off her knowledge to Li Yunmu. It also has 108 hidden levels. Li Yunmu said while pretending to be amazed. However, he really didn't know this inside information. Naturally, these 108 hidden levels don't appear above the surface. Rather, they are spread under the ground. People call it the Tower of Depravity, the opposite of the Tower of Glory. Only those who have left hidden domains and have depravity have the qualifications to temper themselves in the Tower of Depravity. As for what rewards the Tower of Depravity holds, I won't tell you. Chu Qingye laughed and didn't bother with Li Yunmu anymore. She led her 2 sword maidens through the tower's steps, and soon, she was transferred to inside the tower through the familiar transfer channel. Li Yunmu sighed deeply. This girl was a little repulsive. She unexpectedly left just before telling him the climax. He climbed the stairs and arrived at the tower's platform where little Xia and Lin Li were standing. After carefully looking through it once, he noticed that a black-colored stele was erected on the platform. The stele contained the ranks of the most glorious challengers of Tower of Glory. There were 100 names on the stele. The list was set in ascending order. The highest-ranked challenger was a rainbow crystal layer fluxer who had reached 87th level. Under him, there was a line of rainbow crystal fluxers. Only after crossing the top 50, did he find the name of a golden crystal flux disciple. Finally, after 83rd rank, he found some familiar names. Sun Kyungsu, rank 83, silver crystal fluxer, the highest tower level reached 26th level. Wang Ming, 87th rank, silver crystal fluxer, highest level reached 24th level. Ling Shuang, 97th rank, black crystal fluxer, highest tower level reached 21st level. Ling Shuang? Dang, so that silent woman Ling Shuang has her name on the Tower of Glory's rankings. Li Yunmu sighed deeply. Having a backer surely is awesome. These people with a powerful person backing them learn about everything first and know what to do, unlike him who has to rely on making inquiries. Ling Shuang was one of 6 black crystal fluxers who had their name on the list and had become famous after entering the top 100, which was absolutely terrifying. But there are 2 more characters who were relatively more amazing. These 2 people had the cultivation of ordinary crystal layer and were ranked in succession at 99th and 100th position. First one was an ordinary crystal fluxer from the desolate continent, named Man Tian. Dang, what a f***ing name. Once Li Yunmu saw the name, the first thought that entered his mind was that this was an arrogant protagonist of some novel. The second person had come from Northern Sea continent and was called Hai Yu. She was a female. Both of them had reached the 20th level. Both of them were a newcomer, same as him. One belonged to barbarian race, while the other was a person of the sea god. Too incredible, charging into the first 100 ranks with a cultivation of ordinary crystal layer. It must be known that within all 6 continents, there were only 2 people who had charged into the top 100 with the lowest level cultivation. Not even most of the golden crystal fluxers or silver crystal fluxers had the qualifications to enter here, so was it incredible or not? When Li Yunmu saw this list, he instantly felt greatly pressurized. Initially, he had thought of charging through the first 20 floors and earning some good quality runes. But now, he discovered that charging through the first 20 floors wasn't so easy as he thought. No need to be scared, just go. After taking a look at the list, he didn't wait anymore and touched the stone steel. Following which, his whole body disappeared and he was transferred to inside the Tower of Glory. Chapter 108, Heaven-Shaking Viciousness. His consciousness turned dizzy as he was transferred. When he became sober again, he discovered that he was already inside the Tower of Glory. He raised his head to look up front and discovered that there was only a simple writing board in front of him. The board, which emitted extraordinary grandeur, had only 3 words written on it: the first level. The first level, clearly, this was the first level of Tower of Glory. Presently, Li Yunmu still hadn't truly entered the first level. There was a gate in front of him. Only when he crosses it could he truly be considered as a challenger of the tower. Once he enters the first level, then he could not stop. Even if the challenger encounters a life-threatening danger inside, he could only rely on himself. Therefore the Tower of Glory wasn't so easy to charge through. It was both a supreme honor of Fluxers as well as their burial site. Ordinary Fluxers don't come into the Tower of Glory because they have self-awareness. Ding! Critical system warning. The host is currently in an extremely sinister dimensional space. The system's estimated time to scan the Tower of Glory completely, 3 minutes and 56 seconds. Requesting for the host to wait. Suddenly, Li Yunmu received the system's repeated notification, which instantly halted his feet from taking another step. Critical system warning? Sinister. A trace of fear appeared in Li Yunmu's heart. This type of warning and tone had never been used by the system before. Tower of Glory was extremely dangerous. He was aware of this and had also prepared for it mentally. But the usage of word sinister did deserve proper investigation. This Tower of Glory was created by the Flux ancestor, the grandest legendary hero of mankind who was the protagonist of many folklores of humanity. But now, why had the system described this place as sinister? Li Yunmu slightly calmed down and patiently waited for the system's scan to be completed. Now that system's intelligence had been upgraded to the 3rd level, its analyzing and scanning speed had become extremely quick. The 3 minutes or so taken didn't reflect that Tower of Glory was simple, but rather that it was very complicated. During this short while, time seemed to be passing very quickly. Finally, after several minutes, the system's notification echoed in his mind again. Tower of Glory has been scanned completely. It has been added as a super shadow hack location. To prevent the host from being subjected to dangerous situations, the system will perform in-depth analysis. Requesting for the host to wait patiently for its completion. Another thing that astonished Li Yunmu even more was that the system, which had always been calm and composed, after entering here, seemed to have become tense. Even after performing the scanning, it had launched an in-depth analysis. Fortunately, Li Yunmu didn't have to wait for long this time. Roughly in the same amount of time it takes to prepare a cup of tea, a series of notifications from system rang out in his mind. Ding! The progress of the in-depth analysis currently 31% complete. The system has discovered that the tower possesses extremely strange absorption ability. Of the total flux energy released by a fluxer within the tower, 30% of the energy will be silently absorbed. The whereabouts of the location where the absorbed energy is transferred is unknown. The purpose behind this also unknown. Tentative speculation, this absorbed amount of energy will be used to support everyday ordinary working of the tower. Ding, in-depth analysis progress report, 48% completed. This tower is composed of many small and independent dimensional spaces. The host's present location, the first layer, is also a similar independent dimensional space. The tower has altogether 3,333 such independent dimensional spaces. Ding, analysis progress, 69% completed. Within the dimensional spaces of this towers, the souls of a large number of dimensional beasts and monsters have been bound. While they exist inside the tower, they can be reborn an infinite times after being killed. Only after their soul's essence has been completely used will they truly disappear. Ding, analysis progress, 82% completed. In case a fluxer dies within this tower, it will absorb the space elements of the dying fluxer. What? When Li Yunmu heard this, he couldn't remain calm and collected anymore. Surprisingly, this tower of depravity absorbs the space elements of fluxers like the system. However, therein lies the difference between the system and this tower of glory. The system absorbs space elements only from opponents defeated by Li Yunmu on the dimensional battlefield. Unless it absorbs space elements from the same person within 10 days, there are no residual effects on that person. But what about this tower of glory? It directly absorbs space elements from the dying fluxer. Is this still the tower of glory as considered by humanity or the tower of evil? Within an instant, Li Yunmu finally understood the reason behind system's abnormal state and extreme cautiousness. Analysis complete. After a series of deductions and analyses, the system has determined that this is indeed an evil tower. The creator had used origin dimensional stone to build this tower and is baiting all the elite fluxers from all 6 continents to challenge this tower by using rewards. He is exploiting the greed of fluxers to make them overestimate their abilities to challenge even higher levels. Thus, causing lots of fluxers to die within this tower and get their space elements absorbed thoroughly. These space elements are being used to expand this heavenly world's area. After a proper in-depth analysis, the system made several successive deductions and finally uncovered the terrifying secret of this tower of glory. After hearing everything, Li Yunmu became completely depressed. This was the legendary Flux ancestor? This great person, who was the first person to awaken Flux energy 200 years ago, was surprisingly harboring such sinister intentions. This tower of glory was just a cover to hide his evil plans? I am afraid that perhaps no person on the earth including all the fluxer on the 6 continents know this secret. No, wait, that's not possible. After all, if there was a group of idiots in humanity, then similarly, there certainly should be a group of wise men too. It was impossible that they hadn't discovered the conspiracy in the countless years this tower of glory had worked. For example, how could people who had cultivated to the sage layer, the ordinary sages, domain sages, or battle SGE lords not know this? Are they really not aware of this? I am afraid that's not the case. If what I am thinking was really true, then the darkness in this world was much more terrifying than I had imagined. Either these people who know about the situation have joined hands with this Flux ancestor or they know what's happening and presently don't have the power to stop this conspiracy. Yes, that's it. There could only be these 2 possibilities. Li Yunmu continued to ponder on this issue for a while and came up with 2 possibilities. He was inclined towards the second possibility. After all, he was convinced that if the entire upper echelon of the humanity was filled with these sinister people, then the human species would have been exterminated long ago. If the people standing at the peak considered both ordinary people and fluxers only as fertilizers for themselves, then what hope would this race still have? Moreover, the main reason why Li Yunmu didn't believe that these people were in huge number was that when the Flux ancestor successfully condenses his 12 stars and become the supreme deity of the present age, what business would he still have with these people? It wasn't like they were also becoming deities. Hence, there were no benefits for them. On the contrary, they would be under the control of others. These people standing at the peak of humanity certainly wouldn't engage in such an unprofitable deal. Chapter 109, Incarnated Tower, Thou Path. The Fluxer Guild's power and influence were enormous. The personal power of the Flux Ancestor was equally terrifying. The Flux Ancestor had already congealed 7 stars in his heavenly world, and his cultivation had reached the sage layer. This being the case, the other powers of humanity could not possibly contend against him. After all, apart from the human 6 continents fighting overtly and covertly to increase their influence and not uniting as one, there was also the threat of dimensional monsters. Weren't these also the problems responsible for humanity's lack of development? Regarding this situation, Li Yunmu wasn't aware of it before. After all, with his cultivation, how could he know what the people sitting at the top of humanity's pyramid were thinking? But now, since he already knew this terrifying secret, what should he do? Should he still try to obtain the ancient freezing rune or not? And what about the ancient thunder rune? System, you said this tower is an incarnation of the Flux Ancestor. Then isn't each and every single movement within this tower being monitored by him? Suddenly, Li Yunmu broke out in cold sweat when he thought of another frightening probability. The host doesn't need to worry. The system had already detected it. To congeal 12 stars and become a true deity, this Flux Ancestor had already incarnated as the tower, and his consciousness had completely vanished for the time being. Presently, the control of this heavenly world and Tower of Glory is in the hands of a low-intelligence spirit creature. After performing the in-depth analysis of the Flux Ancestor's Tower of Glory, the system had once again recovered its calm. Li Yunmu could even detect a trace of disdain in its tone when it mentioned the low-intelligence life form. So, you mean that this low-intelligence spirit creature can only follow the commands left by the Flux Ancestor before he incarnated into this tower? It cannot discover anomalies like us. Yes, that is the general idea. Although it is a low-intelligence life form, it can make some adjustments outside the most core set of commands it had been given. However, the core purpose of its existence is only to act as the administrator for this tower. As long as we don't threaten this heavenly world's activities and purpose, it simply wouldn't pay any attention to us. Moreover, it is impossible for this life form to discover the system's presence at its intelligence level. The system's calm and composed manner of speaking gave relief to Li Yunmu. Only now did his thoughts calm down enough to allow him to consider this situation properly as he begun to think about it. Some 70 years ago, as written down in the books, some sages had joined together and attempted to attack the heavenly world of the Fluxer Guild's creator. At that time, these sages and Fluxers all thought that this Flux Ancestor had silently perished. This was because the Flux Ancestor hadn't revealed himself for a few decades. Even the control of the heavenly world had also been handed over to his subordinate, and no one could find any sign of his existence. However, when these sages entered the Flux Ancestor's heavenly world to create trouble, they were trapped and their strength was sealed by the world power laws of the heavenly world. At that moment, people finally realized that the Flux Ancestor hadn't perished. He was still alive. As for where he stayed, he was still living in secret in his heavenly world. That's why people didn't find out. After this battle, there weren't any more sages who would dare to intrude in his heavenly world and create trouble. The reason was very simple. Although the combat strength of sages shot through the roof outside the heavenly world and they weren't afraid of a world master's power, battling within the heavenly world of a world master was a different story. The world master was like a god here. When Li Yunmu remembered everything written in the book, only then did he finally realize. Perhaps as early as 100 years ago, the Flux Ancestor had incarnated as the tower to attract the attention of all the elites of every continent to come and challenge this tower. Because of this reason, 7 enormous stars had been created by his heavenly world within a short 100 years. He only needs to congeal 5 more to become a deity. Extremely frightening. The person considered as the greatest hero of humanity by the majority of Fluxers and even ordinary people had surprisingly been hiding such an extremely sinister plan to become a deity. However, why on earth am I worried about this? Li Yunmu didn't consider himself a good person. If he didn't have the system's assistance, then it would probably have been extremely difficult for him to resist the urge of using this sort of shortcut to rapidly congeal all the stars. Soon, he shook his head, smiling self-mockingly. Could a little ordinary crystal flux disciple like him escape in the face of such danger? He didn't need to be concerned with such matters at all. If the sky fell down, there were those taller than him to hold it up. Then for now? Of course he would continue with challenging the tower. Immediately, Li Yunmu decided in his heart. So what if this Tower of Glory is the incarnation of the Flux ancestor? As long as he doesn't get killed because of his greed, he could earn rewards by venturing further into the tower like the others. Presently, Li Yunmu knew the complete truth about this place. Hence, he would be even more careful and wouldn't allow his greed to consume him, thus decreasing the chances of him perishing here even more. Since everything was settled, he should start now. The current actions of the Flux ancestor had provided a good reference to Li Yunmu. The system didn't require the Fluxer to die to absorb his space elements. In that case, what if after coming out of the Tower of Glory, he also allowed Fluxers of the whole world to enter his heavenly world and absorb their space elements? When this idea entered Li Yunmu's mind, he decided that trying it was completely worth it. He possessed the system which was even more advanced in absorbing the space elements. Thus, absorbing the space elements wouldn't require him to sacrifice his life and incarnate as a tower. However, the prerequisite was his strength and background were too low. He must possess a sufficiently powerful background and strength to bring this idea into reality. Next instant, Li Yunmu didn't delay any longer and entered the door of the Tower of Glory's first level. Only after he stepped in could he be considered to enter the true Tower of Glory. Sure enough, there really was an independent space inside the tower. When he had assessed the first level of Tower of Glory from the outside, it seemed to have a diameter of merely 10 m, but the independent space inside had a diameter of 100 m. All around him were tower walls constructed from some unknown material. The height of this space was also 100 m. However, there were 99 exit passages built spread evenly on the tower walls. When Li Yunmu, a stranger, entered inside, 9 out of the 99 exits passages begun to emit a frightening presence. Soon, 9 calf-sized rats rushed forth from them. It's dark claw hell rats. 9 rats. Each of them had a cultivation of the first layer ordinary crystal layer. Compared to a person who had opened 12 flux points as well as condensed his ordinary crystal armor, their strength could be considered inferior. However, these were the creatures of the true fifth dimension. Their fleshly bodies were much more formidable than humans. Thus, it could be concluded that the strength of a single dark claw hell rat was the same as an ordinary crystal fluxer at his peak. Usually, an ordinary crystal fluxer might not be able to catch one of these rats on his own. However, 9 of them had currently appeared all of a sudden. Li Yunmu discovered that his eyesight really hadn't gone bad, he hadn't counted wrongly. There really were 9 dark claw hell rats. Only now did he know the difficulty of the first level. However, Li Yunmu wasn't your average ordinary crystal fluxer. This task basically didn't require him to make his move. Next instant, the shadow behind his body slowly shook and instantly divided into 2. Immediately, Li Yun and Li Feng, these 2 shadows, used the charged assault to rush towards the 9 dark claw hell rats. Charged assault, violent blade critical leap strike. When the 2 shadows attacked using the 18 stacked chops ending with a final critical leap strike, these 9 that were sufficient to give nightmares to any normal ordinary crystal fluxer were instantly beheaded. From the start of the fight to the end, Li Yunmu himself didn't even need to lift a finger. Quite alright. Perhaps his present cultivation couldn't be compared to those proud sons of heavens. However, if he just wanted to advance through the tower while killing monsters? In that case, he would just have to kill every monster attacking him, right? It must be known that his present true combat strength was equal to 3 Li Yunmu and not just 1. Chapter 110, Virgin Blood of a Sacred Shadow Female. Ding, you have obtained 136 ability points. Within less than 3 minutes, the first level of the Tower of Glory was broken through as the system's notification echoed in his mind. The average level strength of these Dark Claw Hell Rats was between 12th to 13th. Hence, he also earned a pretty good amount of ability points from killing them. Seeing the two shadows easily clearing the first level within a short time, Li Yunmu felt great satisfaction. He had never expected that the monster in the Tower of Glory would earn him experience and ability points. Furthermore, basically all of the dimensional monsters here had strength above grade 10, so his profit per monster was much higher compared to dwarf witches. However, his only resentment was that these Dark Claw Hell Rats didn't drop flux crystals. But nothing could be done about it. After all, he had just been told that these monsters don't truly die, as they were just beast souls bound to this place. Apart from this, when the corpse of the Hell Rats disappeared, a tower badge of Tower of Glory gradually condensed in their place. This tower badge was a unique item of the Tower of Glory. Whether he could obtain the rewards of challenging the Tower of Glory depended completely on whether he could obtain sufficient tower badges. In other words, this was a unique currency used only in the tower. When Li Yunmu saw this tower badge, his eyes immediately shone with excitement as he moved forward to collect it. After clearing the first level, he had only obtained one tower badge. Apparently, in the Tower of Glory, which was also known as the place where everything could be obtained, it wasn't so easy to get rewards. If it had been any other average ordinary crystal fluxer in his place, let alone speak of fighting with 9 Dark Claw Hell Rats, even one would have been enough to deal with that fluxer. He could clearly see how difficult venturing into the Tower of Glory was. This first level wasn't something which your average ordinary crystal fluxers could deal with, but Li Yunmu had cleared it. Since the two other newcomers, Man Tian and Hai Yu, had both accomplished it as ordinary crystal fluxer, why would it be impossible for him? While thinking about this, Li Yunmu moved forward to collect the badge. Soon, he discovered that there was a shining halo at the center of the tower. When Li Yunmu walked towards it, he found that there was a stone stele hovering above the ground inside the halo. When he extended his hand and touched the stone stele, a large amount of information immediately came pouring into his mind. Information about the large number of rewards which could be exchanged for tower badges was written on the stone stele. His glance carefully swept over the stele. He soon discovered the ancient freezing runes that he was looking for. Ancient freezing rune, ordinary crystal grade, exchange requirement, 10 Tower of Glory badges. Ancient thunder rune, ordinary crystal grade, exchange requirement, 10 Tower of Glory badges. When he saw that the ancient runes, which require over 1 million dimensional coins outside, could be obtained for a mere 10 Tower of Glory badges, Li Yunmu was shocked in his heart. This tower badge was extremely costly. No, costly could not be used to describe it anymore. The price of a tower badge was simply exorbitant. Even though he already knew the sinister reason of the Tower of Glory's existence, after taking a look at the large number of items which could be obtained, Li Yunmu couldn't help but wish for even more tower badges. An extraordinary quality B-grade deadly flux skill also requires only 10 tower badges. This was no different from giving an expensive gift. Offensive B-grade skills of extraordinary nature, as long as a fluxer learns this deadly skill, then his battle prowess would immediately swell and rise above the combat strength of the average populace. He would become an elite existence among those who had the same layer of cultivation. He then continued to carefully examine it. As he reached towards the rear part of the stele, Li Yunmu discovered there were even some 5th-dimensional treasure weapons which could be obtained. This is the legendary Sage skill. This is Dark Flux Energy. This is a 12-colored rainbow crystal of a king-grade beast. It also has this wind dragon's blood which could only be found in 6th dimension. Wait, this is the true sight devil eye of a hidden domain's tyrant. My god, this Tower of Glory is extremely wealthy. Li Yunmu was unable to take his eyes off the stele. Originally, he believed that a treasure like Dark Flux Energy was a unique pinnacle-grade treasure. However, that doesn't seem to be the case now. One could never imagine the wealth possessed by an enormously powerful sage. However, all of these weren't important. Suddenly, when Li Yunmyu was looking through the items which could be exchanged, he saw one of the most precious items, sacred shadow female's virgin blood. Is it the virgin blood of a sacred shadow female? Li Yunmyu cried out with a shivering tone. He had never expected that the item, whose information he had been trying to find for past many days through the library and discreet inquiries, would surprisingly be found here. What was the virgin blood of a sacred shadow female? If he had been asked this question 10 days ago, Li Yunmyu basically wouldn't know what it was. He would have even though that this sacred shadow female was some human woman. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. To put it simply, the sacred shadow female was a sacred female of the terrifying shadow creature clan of the true seventh dimension. Her strength was about the same as a human sage. Not to mention the fact that this sacred shadow female always stayed in the depths of the shadow clan's territory. Hence, it would be extremely difficult for ordinary fluxers to come into contact with her. However, this Tower of Glory surprisingly had a portion of a sacred shadow female's virgin blood. No wonder, Li Yunmyu couldn't help but cry out in astonishment. He had obtained an extraordinary item from the special dimensional box which had dropped when he killed the dwarf witch clan's king. This extraordinary item just happened to be related to the virgin blood of a sacred shadow female. Specifically speaking, the item which had emerged from the special dimensional box was actually some plant seeds of unknown origins. The system had assessed these seeds as sage treasures. In other words, these seeds were at least on the same level as the underworld raven sage Bao, or maybe even higher. But after obtaining these seeds, he had been unable to use them until now. The reason wasn't related to him. Rather, these seeds could only bear fruits after the virgin blood of a sacred shadow female was poured on them. Li Yunmyu originally believed that he wouldn't be able to use these sage treasure level seeds. However, he had never anticipated that he would encounter a way to use them in this Tower of Glory. After a careful inspection, he discovered that this sacred shadow female's virgin blood required 250 tower badges. It would have been better if he hadn't seen it. Once he saw it, the amount gave him a huge fright. 250 tower badges? Obtaining this was indeed extremely difficult. In fact, even equipment at the level of 5th dimensional treasure weapons only required approximately 100 tower badges. This sacred shadow female's virgin blood. Wasn't this just a drop of virgin blood of a female monster of a clan? This price was really too excessive. Li Yunmyu couldn't smile anymore. However, since the only way to obtain it was to exchange it for tower badges, then regardless of whatever he did, he must obtain it at all costs. Thinking this, Li Yunmyu took a deep breath and made his resolve. Warning: the host's greed has already gone out of control. Requesting for the host not to overestimate his abilities. At this moment, the system issued a timely warning. Fine. Li Yunmyu managed to sober up slightly. Going down the immoral path was no good. The enticement of the rewards of this Tower of Glory was extremely difficult to resist. He had clearly known the purpose of its existence, yet he had almost fallen into its trap. No worries, second level for now. He entered the halo and with one thought, he was immediately transferred to the second level of the Tower of Glory.